Welcome to this video. My name's Barry Beckham and thank you for watching. Now, would it be right to suggest that whenever we purchase new software we have mixed emotions? Of course, we're excited to have some new software to use in a creative way like audio-visual, but we also have that slight fear of the learning curve necessary to be able to make good use of the software. I've been a long-term user of this particular software and I think I could say with some confidence the learning curve is not very steep. In fact, let me show you how it's all done. Here we are in the main screen of PTE AV Studio 10. Whenever we start a new project we would go to File, New, and in the new project window you'll notice that the aspect ratio of the slideshow or presentation we're going to make is set for us at 16:9. Now that's going to be a perfect aspect ratio for the vast majority of our needs because it relates perfectly to our desktop computers, laptops and TV screens. We can even put the name of the slideshow we're about to make, if you know it of course. I'm going to type in here my slideshow. Click OK and we're set up, ready to go. A good place to start is by copying everything you want to use in your presentation into one folder. When we locate that folder from the file tree on the left hand side of this window, then we'll see our images, video clips and sound open up as thumbnails in the file list. You can think of the file list here as your storeroom. It's from here that you can select exactly what you want to use in your presentation. To do that we can simply drag images, video or even sound files down into the slide list below. Now we can do this one at a time or we can bring them all down together. So I could go to any one of these images and double click and it will appear in the slide list. Or I can select all of the images and in fact I can return images that I don't want to use or I change my mind. So let me select the first of these images and I'm going to hold the Shift key and select the video clip at the end, and as you can see everything in between has been selected. I've just left off my title slide there. So all I've got to do here is drag all of these down into the slide list. The window that's just opened up above is the software's way of saying, did you realize that when you drag the content down into the slide list one of those items was a sound file, and you can see the sound file listed here. So I'm going to click OK to say yes, I'm aware of that and it is the music that I want to use, and we'll see that music in a moment or two. Now the next stage may be to change the running order of the images or video we wish to use. Now we can do that via a light box. If we go down to the bottom right of the screen there's a small up arrow. Click that and the light box will open. I can adjust the size of the thumbnails with the slider here, so we can get them much larger if we need to. But to put them in the running order that I'd like to use them, I can just click, drag and drop. Let me just do one or two just to demonstrate this. Let's pick up this young lady and drag her to the start. Let's end on the warmer toned images, so I can drag these ones maybe to the end. Well, I think you get the idea. To go back into the main window, just go back to the same icon, give it a click, and there we are back, and everything is in the right order. Now while we're working on our slideshow, if we see the need to change the running order of one or two slides, we can do that here too. For example, if I wanted this image here to be moved down a little bit, as you can see, I can click, drag and drop right in the slide list. Very convenient. One of the things we need to do constantly is to save our work in progress. We do that by saving a project file. So let's get started with that. I'm going to go up to my File option and choose Save As. I'm going to navigate to my desktop, to my folder of images. The slideshow I'm creating is called My Slideshow for this particular demo. So within there, I'm going to call it My Slideshow. So now all of the changes that we've made so far have been safely stored. We could leave the software, come back another day, pick up from just where we left off. The standard transition between images or videos is a dissolve from one to the next over 2 seconds. We can see that 2 seconds noted at the top left of each of these thumbnails. But we do have many other transitions we can use. If you'd like to change the transition style for all of the content of your slideshow, you can do that globally via the project options at the bottom left of the screen. Click to go into the project options, and from the tabs on the left hand side choose transitions. Then you can select one of the transitions here, and as you tick each one you'll get a representation of what it does shown to you up at the top right. So this would change every single transition in our show, but on this occasion I'll cancel that. Another way to just change an individual slide, because we may be happy with a 2-second faded transition for most of these, but maybe we want something different in 1 or 2 slides. Well, in that case we just select the slide in question and go to Slide Options. Here we have all of the same options, but now that option will only affect the slide or slides you've selected. Now the next stage of creating our slideshow may be to apply a couple of blank slides, one at the front and one at the end, and maybe a title and or end credits. What we'll do here is apply a blank and a title and a blank at the end. That's very easy to do. Just go to the very first image in your slideshow, right click, and you can insert a blank slide. Once the black slide is in place, if we go to Styles and Themes, you're going to get some help in creating your title. Select Styles and go to your Captions option on the left hand side. And here we have a number of options that we can choose from. I'm going to keep it really simple here. I'm going to use the top one. It says we can use a blank, which is what we've got at the start of our show. The caption is pan up. We get a little visual here of what it's going to do, and we can even type in the slideshow title here, so bear with me. And I'm going to apply that. Using the scroll bar here, I'm going to scroll to the end of my slideshow. I'm going to click right at the end and do the same as I did at the start. Right click and insert a blank slide. Remember, don't worry if the blank slide drops in the wrong place. Sometimes it can happen, but we can just click and drag and drop it into the correct place. We could just as easily put some end credits onto this blank, but I'll keep things simple here. So far so good. Now would be another good time to save that project file. A good shortcut is Control S, which will save over the previously saved version, and we called that My Slideshow. What I'd like to do next is to draw your attention to the images that I've got in the slide list. You'll notice this one appears to fit nicely into the shape, whereas this one seems to have black borders, this one too, but the borders here seem thinner. This one seems to have slightly thicker borders. That's indicating that all of these images are a slightly different aspect ratio. All of these are high resolution images. They've not been resized or cropped in any way. We're going to allow PTE AV Studio 10 do that work for us. All we need to do is to use one of those styles again to tell the software to fill the screen with our images. And it doesn't matter if I select one that already fills the screen, because it's not going to do any damage at all. So I'm going to select the first image in my sequence, hold the Shift key, scroll to the end and select the last one. Then I'm going to go to my styles and themes. Within those I need to make sure I select styles, but then I need to go into the one that's called image, the tab. There's the option we need, image cover screen. It says one image here. It will work on one image, but of course if we select a number of images as we have here and select it and apply it, you'll watch them all pop into place, and now they look perfect. And this would be another good time to hit Ctrl S to save the project file over the top of the previous one, so the last changes we made are now safely stored. Remember, we can leave the software at any time, come back another day, pick up from exactly where we left off. Now the next stage to creating a slideshow is to move from the slide list window, the one we're in now, to the timeline. We have a button for that tucked down the bottom right corner. Let's click that and take a look at what we have. This window shows us the images very much like the previous one, but just slightly different. You can see at the top of each of the thumbnails is a little grey bar. That is the length of the transition. If you remember, the default value was 2 seconds, and here we can see that the transition there is 2 seconds, and as I got close to the edge there, you can see a double-headed arrow appeared, and that's an indicator that in this window, as well as the previous, we can extend the length of the transition with click and drag, or reduce it as we see fit. I'll leave it to something around 2, which is about default. Now just below the thumbnails we do get to see our music track, but of course it could be any type of sound, a sound effect, music or commentary, and this window is fully customizable, so we can always drag up if we have many types of soundtrack, but here we're only working on one, so I'll keep my window as big as I can. So what we're going to do here first is to put the cursor back to the very start of our slideshow, and one area of this software I've not said too much about up to now is the area you can see here solid black, because at the moment it's showing us the blank at the start of our show. But this is in fact our mini player. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to press the play button and give you just a few seconds of the front of this slideshow, given that we've got the title in place and a couple of slides and also the music. So let's just get a feel for what this window is going to show us by pressing play. Now, as we could see and hear from that short demonstration using the mini player at the top right, the slideshow is working quite well. We do have the opportunity here to automatically spread any images or content we want in our slideshow along the length of the music we've chosen. Now we can do that by going to this location here, and the option we want is fit all the slides to the soundtrack. Now I'm not going to hit that here because it won't work too well at all, simply for the reason that I've got just a few images here for demo purposes, and they're far too few for the length of music we're using, so we'd have a huge gap between each of the slides. I think I can suggest a much better way forward. What I'm going to do is leave the first image in the position it currently holds, because if I just click this orange line in my sound just for a moment, I can drop the volume completely off, because if I put my cursor back here, you can see we need all of these seconds for that title to appear. So the first slide is actually in quite a nice spot. But I'd like to add the rest of my images on the fly. I want to listen to the music and I want to add them as the music determines, and I'll demonstrate that in a second or two. To achieve that, I'm going to select this slide and click and drag to the right, and you can see it takes all of the other slides with us, and I'm just going to tuck them way up to the right, and you'll see why in a second or two. What I'm also going to do is to move my music, and I'll just right click that little blue dot and it'll remove it, and we're back to full volume. I want my sound to start when this image appears. That's going to be very easy. Just click the soundtrack and slide that to the right, and we can see how the peak of the music matches when this image first appears, but we will need a preview. So put your cursor just prior to that, press play on the mini player, and we can listen and see exactly what we have. Make sure we've got these two nicely lined up. I don't think that looked too bad at all. So, the trick to adding images on the fly. We've got a little plus up here. When I click that plus point, an image will be applied wherever the cursor is. Let me give you a quick flavour of this. I'm going to press play once again. I'm going to just drop the music down again so I don't drown myself out as I'm trying to talk over it. So let's assume the music is playing. I'm going to press play. The first image appears with the music. Then I get to a stage where I feel I need to add another slide. I can hit the plus button, and as you can see, it brings down one of the images that I stacked way to the right and puts it in the position I want it. I'm using the spacebar, which is a nice little shortcut to start and stop the show. Now, even if I don't get this picture here in the perfect spot, I can pick up this little blue tab and I can move it around, try it with the cursor and view it and listen until I get it perfect. But you'll find once you start this procedure, you'll fall into it pretty well. So what I'm going to do is give you a demonstration. I'm going to click and drag this to the right. I'm going to go back and we're going to start again. Now I do need to listen to the music, so I'm not going to do a great deal of talking here. I'm going to put my cursor back. I'm going to press play, and when I think the music deserves an image to be applied, I'm going to do so using the little plus. So let's make a start by pressing play. Now, as you can see, I've stopped already. Personally, from experience, I find it's the first few slides which are the most difficult to get right, but once we've got those correct, then the rest usually follow pretty well. So a good idea at this point is to bring your cursor back to this position and now have a preview of your first three images. Just listen carefully and watch. Be critical, but remember at any time you can save this as another project file, save over the top of the previous one, so as you make your changes you can save your work in progress. So let's press play and just watch those first three once again. Well, that looks and sounds pretty good. I'm going to put my cursor just before my third slide. I'm going to do one or two others, and then I'll continue off camera, so to speak, to save a bit of video space. I think by now you've probably got a good idea, but just a few more. Press play, and I'm going to hit the plus to add the slides to the timeline when I think the music is calling for them. Now I've stopped at this point because this one didn't have a very strong cue, and this one probably could do with lining up at this point. Now this is a common thing that's going to happen, and it's typical for me, and I think many others that use this software, to then click the blue tab, move this one just to where it matches that little peak in the music, and maybe we can just space this one out. And once again, anytime we have any doubts about whether what we've done is right or wrong, just put your cursor immediately before the image in question, press play, and just view and listen using the mini player. Now I'm going to do that. We're going to view these two, but then I'm going to continue and add the rest of my images and also the video, which is tucked away down at the bottom left of the file list. So let's press play. Sounds pretty good to me. Now I've gone ahead and I've synchronized all of my slides to the music. Just a quick reminder, we can pick up the blue tab and move an individual slide. I'll move it a second to the left and 2 seconds to the right and back. We've got infinite control. Once we've got to this point though, and we've got most of our slides synchronized, we want to try to avoid mistakenly doing something like this and spoiling all of our work. But don't forget the Control Z key. We all make mistakes, and the Control Z will enable you to undo them. But we have a blank at the start of our slideshow. We have a title, and we have the images and also a piece of video. Incidentally, this video is a 4K video shot with a Mavic Pro drone. But when we get to the end image and the blank, of course, because this is a demonstration, I've got a lot more sound than I have images. Well, this isn't uncommon whenever you make an audio-visual sequence, but it's very, very easy to fix. First thing I'm going to do is to just drag out the transition of my last slide. So I'm just going to make that maybe 4 or 5 seconds rather than the standard 2. Remember, you can do that to any of these, and that is a creative process. But of course I need my slideshow to finish now just as it fades out, so I usually give a second or two of a blank before the slideshow actually ends. But we've got much too much music, but it really is quick and easy to fix. All I need to do is to scroll to the end of the sound file, and when I put my cursor right on the end, it'll change to a double-headed arrow, and I can drag that music back. You can see how that works. I can drag it back too far, and then I can bring it back so that it's going to fade out just a second before the slideshow ends. And I need to drag that back again because I got that slightly wrong. So 2 seconds after the fade out we're going to end, but the music is going to end about a second before we finally get to black. How do we achieve that? We just click at the end of the sound file, and then if we come back, well, how long a fade out you want is going to be a personal choice, but let's just select about that point there. I'm just clicking the volume line to apply these blue markers, and then I can just drag that down to fade out. Let me give you a view of that by putting my cursor in that position and pressing play. And of course, at any time you can just pick up that blue marker. If you want the fade to be a bit more abrupt, you can move it to the right or the left. As you can see, you do have a great deal of scope here to match your sound to your images. At this point, it's pretty vital that we hit that shortcut key of Control S to save our project file, because our slideshow is done. The very last stage of creating a slideshow is to publish the show, and you can see a blue button up at the top right. When we create a slideshow, we create two types of files. We've been creating our work in progress called the project file, but that of course isn't our slideshow. That just tells the software what images we've used, where they are, how long the transitions are, what transitions we've used, what editing we've done to the sound. We need to publish the show, and we'll do that in just a moment. Before you do, a good tip is to live with your show for a few days. Play your show full screen. If you look up again at the top right, you've got another button there that says preview. That button will preview full screen from the very start of your slideshow. But if you want to preview full screen from any position, especially here in the timeline or in the slide list, just put your cursor wherever you want it. I'll just place it right at the end, and then you can hit this little 4-arrowed icon here. I'm not going to do that while recording, because recording an on-screen video doesn't really show you a full screen video as nice as it should be, so I'm going to leave that to your imagination. But it's a good tip. Preview your show a few times, make sure you're happy with it, because you're bound to want to tweak one or two of the images, maybe extend a transition or shuffle a slide 1 second one way or another. But then once you are happy with it, then we can publish the show. So if I take you up to the top right to the big blue button, we'll click to publish the show. The options we have are many, but I'm going to dwell mostly on 3 of them. We can create an executable file which will just play on a PC computer, a Windows-based computer. We have the option to create a slightly different file. It's much the same as the one above, but it's got some protection against virus software from thinking it may be a virus, which of course it isn't. And there you can see it contains a digital signature. So that's great if you want to put your slideshow up on the net for others to download. Probably the most common way to output a slideshow now is a HD or 4K video, particularly HD at 1920 by 1080 pixels. Why that? Because practically every PC and Mac screen will be 16:9 aspect ratio, which is what this is. Practically all televisions are. It's perfect for uploading to YouTube and other social media. It's just a good all-round way of creating a show. But you'll notice that the default is high quality and 60p. I'm going to suggest that we remain with that. So what I'm going to do now is to output this. You can see it's going to put it, if I don't change the destination, into the folder that I originally made. So it's going to follow where I place my project file. So all I really need to do here is to click OK, walk away from my computer, and just allow the software to create my video. There we are, our first slideshow created quickly and easily. Now this is what you can expect to see within your project folder when your 60p MP4 video has been created. As you can see here, we can see all of the images we used. We can also identify the piece of music. Just out of shot here is the video I included. Here we can see the project file. That's the file that retains all of the information to be able to recreate your show. And here is your final MP4, which we can move from PC to Mac, from Mac to YouTube, use it as we wish. If you'd like to stay with me for a minute or two, we can watch the results of our work. Just bear in mind that what we've dealt with in this demo is just a small fraction of what this software is capable of. I've deliberately kept things basic here because we need the basics understood before we can move on to the fun stuff. Now once we have the core process of creating a show understood, then we can investigate other aspects of this software, such as animation. Now if you're watching on YouTube, I'll put a link below to my animation tutorials and one or two presentations related to this one that you may find helpful. PTE AV Studio 10 software is available at the address on screen. This website is both safe and secure. Now if you'd like to stay with me for yet a final 2 minutes, we can take a look at exactly the same show that we've just made, but with one or two simple, quick and easy refinements. It's just to give you some idea how we can improve the visual aspects of our presentations. Thanks for watching.